Good evening from Los Angeles. Republicans on Capitol Hill who last month having firmly opposed limits of any kind on Wall Street salaries and bonuses. Republican lawmakers now pretending to be shocked and outraged at the bonuses being awarded to executives at AIG. In our fifth story in the countdown, these same Republicans today, some switching their votes to yes to get some of that money back, only at the last moment when it had become clear that the measure was going to pass without them. These same Republicans today trying to blame President Obama for bonuses that were negotiated with the approval of the previous Bush administration. They accused him of being distracted. Next, they'll be blaming Obama for Citigroup's plan to waste $10 million on new office suites for its CEO and company. The president in California tonight, taping an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno just moments ago, about 100 yards from this desk. Republicans using that to revive their charges that because the last president could not juggle more than one task at a time, if that many, and that their last presidential candidate fatefully bailed out on and lied to a prominent talk show host, then this president should not be attempting to do two things at once. At a news conference on Capitol Hill, Arizona Republican Jon Kyl, who's actually a grown-up adult male who apparently can find his office every day, accusing the president of jetting off to appear on Leno when he really should be in Washington dealing with the AIG mess. The Costello to his Abbott, Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, then accusing the president of being distracted by his picks in the NCAA basketball tournament.
The AIG bonuses make the president subject to the charge that he's living above the store but not minding it. He's even found time to fill out his NCAA basketball brackets, which is a healthy thing to do, in my opinion. But he picked North Carolina, and he caused the Duke coach, our Olympic coach, Coach K, to say, respectfully, you might be spending less time on the brackets, Mr. President, and more time on the economy. I think that's what we'd like to say, with respect.
Well, except Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski did not really say what Senator Alexander just said he said, and what the right-wing blogosphere has been in turns falsely propagating and hiding ever since. One, Coach K was smiling, joking when he questioned President Obama having picked Pittsburgh to advance to the Final Four over Duke. Two, Krzyzewski, who is brighter than just about anybody in the Senate, added that he loves the president and loves that so many Americans are taking the time to fill out brackets. Roll the actual clip.
It doesn't matter at all what anyone predicts. It's what you do. You know, somebody said that, you know, we're not in President Obama's Final Four. You know, and as much as I respect what he's doing, really, you know, the economy is something that he should focus on. You know, probably more than the brackets. And so why would I care about that? I love the guy, and I think he's going to be great. But I love the fact that so many people are filling him out because the game has grown so much.
He ripped who he picked, not that he picked. Context is everything. As another example, without context, the final vote in today's vote in the House to slap a 90% tax on the AIG bonuses and other bonuses like them would be incredibly deceptive at first blush. The measure passed 328 to 93, 87 Republicans voting against it. Yet to quote from the Associated Press account of the vote, although a number of Republicans cast no votes against the measure at first, there was a heavy GOP migration to the yes side in the closing moments. Democratic leader Reid asking tonight that the bill be passed by unanimous consent. Senator Kyl objecting, thereby blocking it. This afternoon at a town hall here in Southern California, where he was introduced by the Republican governor of this state, Mr. Schwarzenegger, the president responding to Senator Kyl's criticism that he should not have gone on Leno.
Somebody was saying the other today, I think, that I shouldn't be on Leno. I can't handle that and the economy at the same time. Listen, here's what I say. I say our challenges are too big to ignore. The cost of our health care is too high to ignore. Our dependence on oil is too dangerous to ignore. Our education deficit is too wide to ignore.
Meanwhile, back on Capitol Hill, the Inspector General for TARP, Neil Barofsky, testifying that the Bush administration approved those AIG bonuses in its agreement last autumn to provide bailout funds to that insurance giant. And on the floor of the House, in advance of today's vote, taxed those AIG bonuses and the other bonuses at 90% rates, the debate turning anatomical. Republican leader Boehner describing the bill as a way for Democrats to cover their butts. Republican Congressman LaTourette of Ohio saying this.
Ross Perot, when he ran for president in 1992, he talked about the giant sucking sound. Well, today there's another giant sucking sound going on in Washington, D.C., and that's the tightening of sphincters on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue as people are having to explain who put into the stimulus bill this provision of law.
Yes, his name really is La Tourette. Time now to call in our own Howard Fineman, senior Washington correspondent for Newsweek magazine. Good evening, Howard.
Good evening, Keith.
So, are the Republicans actually back to the notion that the president can't, or at least should not, be able to walk and chew gum at the same time? And is that the best that they've got? I mean, should we be expecting them tomorrow to start calling him a celebrity again because he was on Jay Leno?
Well, let's see. That would be yes, yes, and yes. They're back to that. It's the best they can do. And already today they're accusing him of being an entertainer. You will be shocked to know, Keith, that Franklin Delano Roosevelt appeared on radio. I mentioned that because what Obama is doing, what the president is doing, I think this is fair. He's using the media that exist. He's trying to reach as many people as he can. He's not doing it because he wants the pub. I mean, he's doing it because he wants to reach the people. And I think it's a very smart thing to do, and it just makes the Republicans look like ridiculous mossbacks to complain about it. Not least of which because California is in terrible economic shape. Here you have the President of the United States making common cause, not with Jay Leno, but with Arnold Schwarzenegger, a hello Republican governor. That should be enough to convince the congressional Republicans that they're barking up the wrong tree here.
Yeah, they may need to address that visit rather than the one in this building tonight. Last month, the Republicans were against imposing any sorts of limits on executive pay or caps on them. And the Republican leader in the Senate, Mr. McConnell, actually said that he was arguing against the temptation to basically dictate to these businesses how they should run these operations. The votes today, the migration of votes to support this bill when it had already passed, is that just a naked attempt to hide how completely their previous argument blew up in their faces?
Well, sure. Here's the thing. I mean, the Democrats are not covered in glory here. You know, they flip-flopped around on this in the conference committee, and they haven't gotten their story straight. But at least the Democrats have tried to some degree to do the right thing on this or pay attention to it. The Republicans' attitude all along has been, don't touch it. Don't ever deal with executive pay. It's a socialist plot to question the compensation of corporate executives, even if they're corporate executives who are being paid with federal money, with hundreds of billions of dollars of federal money. So, no, the Republicans have no philosophical leg to stand on, and, of course, that's why they ran across the aisle to vote for the bill today.
And what about the impact of this little nugget that the TARP inspector mentioned, the inspector general who said that the Bush administration knew about the AIG bonuses, approved them? When do we start accepting as fact that that part of it, at least, if not President Bush's fault directly, happened during President Bush's watch?
Well, I'm sure he will deal with that on the 5th page of his $7 million autobiography. Well, of course. It was September 2008, Keith. George W. Bush was still president. The election hadn't happened yet. The world economy was melting down. They were having fateful meetings on the Hill about saving it. They doled out hundreds of billions to AIG, and they didn't make any provisions at all for any clawbacks, takebacks, or whatever of any bonuses that anybody was going to get. That all happened under the last administration.
Any chance that this 90% bill would survive a Supreme Court challenge, this idea of taxing these things retroactively? I believe the Constitution says nothing about ex post facto law.
Well, I don't think so. I went back and read my Constitution. It's Article 1, Section 9. You can't have ex post facto laws. That's after the fact. And you can't have bills of attainder, which means you can't just focus on an individual group. So this bill will strike out, if it ever passes the Senate, on both provisions of Article 9. It's an ex post facto bill of attainder. but an ex post facto bill of attainder that feels good. Right. Howard Fineman of MSNBC and Newsweek. As always, Howard, great thanks.